maybe we've used assumptions, maybe 1,000 kilometers in real life will represent which is maybe 1 centimeter or 0.5 centimeter on the map. So we have made some simplifying assumptions of the real world and then developed a model. And that is what we are trying to do in mathematical modeling. We look at the real world, we study it, and then because the real world is complex, it's quite complex. Abuja, there are so many networks, road networks, here. But then we have made some simplification so that if you see this, you have an idea of what Abuja is. We have removed some complexities. Do we understand? And so that is what we are trying to. So assumptions, model assumptions helps us to simplify our model because the real world is very complex. And then it makes our model tractable. So let's see that model this model we are looking at. We have made some assumptions, some simplifying assumptions for this model. Can we mention some of those assumptions we have made? Let's make it interactive. What are some of the assumptions you can think of that we have made for this model? Can we mention them one by one? If you look at this, we are trying to model the real world using this model. So what assumptions do you think we've made to simplify the real world into this?
I think one of the assumptions is that nobody is entering the sustainable compartment.
Thank you very much. We have made that assumption that nobody is coming into that compartment. That is a good assumption that the system or the model is a closed system, a closed population. Nobody is coming in, nobody is going out. Do we see that? Nobody is coming in, nobody is what? So we can say for this room now, we want to lock up. Let's go for it. We want to go for a retreat, a modeling retreat for 2 weeks, and we'll lock the door. Nobody will what? Go out. Nobody will what? Come in. And we'll start interacting. And then because of our interactions, there may be transmission of disease. People might be moving from one infection status to the other. Is it impossible? Huh? No one is coming in. No, so models like this, you can use it for maybe to model diseases that are epidemic disease, that the short outbreaks. You want to model an epidemic disease like maybe Ebola, outbreaks of Ebola that happens within a short period of time, where you want to, or maybe in a small population, maybe like a classroom, you want to model, there's an outbreak of disease in a boarding school. You can use models like this, where you have made the simplifying assumption that nobody is going out, coming in, and no one is what? Going out. So that's one assumption we have made for this model, that it's a closed population, there is no birth, there is no death, there is no migration. Do we get that? So that's a simplifying assumption that Mark has helped us to identify. Another assumption you want to help us.
Yeah. Homogeneous, so there's no heterogeneity.
There is no heterogeneity. There's an homogeneous mixing. That means we have assumed that the probability of interaction between the susceptible persons and we have equal probability of interaction between everyone in the population. They mix homogeneously. Yes?
I'm not sure, but I just want to try.
Okay, ma'am.
That after from the infected individuals,
yes,
some were able to recover.
Okay.
Some were able to recover from those that got infected.
Some were able to recover. Yes, I think that's captured in the model, that those in the infected class, some recovered. So that's captured in the model. Yes. Is it an assumption? No, we won't say that is an assumption because our model actually captured that people are actually recovering. That those in the high class are actually recovering. So we won't place that as an assumption because our model captures that phenomenon. Yes, Shimon? Okay. Yeah, so for this, we have not, so we have assumed that the reason for their recovery is natural recovery. We have not included treatment. So you can, that's an assumption, a good assumption that we have assumed that those in the high class recover naturally. And for infectious disease, yes, it makes sense that people without treatments, they can recover. Thank you. Another assumption, what other assumption? Yeah. Yes, just like what he said earlier, that now we have also assumed that recovered individuals, once they recover, that disease, this particular disease, confers permanent immunity to them. Once they recover, they do not become susceptible again. Are there diseases like that? Can we mention them? Chickenpox, measles, mostly childhood disease. Mostly childhood disease. When you recover for life. Yes, even although measles, we still have few persons, little chance. The chance is negligible. Very few, the probability is quite rare that now we now see people that they've had measles before, they also have it again. But in most cases, for those diseases, childhood disease, once you recover, it confers permanent immunity. You have protection for life. So that assumption also makes sense that once you recover for life. And you do not become susceptible again. Do you get it now, sir? Yeah. So for this model, remember we are looking at assumptions that will help to simplify the real life situation. What other assumption are we seeing here? What other assumption? Yes, sir. Yes, nobody is dying. Nobody is dying from maybe natural cause, yeah, or from the disease. Although for the recovered class, the recovered population, it's also called the removed. So the removed could be as a result of death too. So those that are moving here, they are moving. Those here, they are either recovered or they are dead. You say what? Yes, so I defined it earlier. If you see here, you will see removed / recovered. The definition, the removed / recovered. So these are individuals who have recovered or they are removed through death and cannot be reinfected. So those are some of the assumptions we have used for this model. Let's see them. All the ones we mentioned. We've mentioned them. In the SIR player group, we have made some simplifying assumptions. Number one, the population is close with no births, no death, or migration, like the first person mentioned. Then one assumption we did not mention is that we have assumed that infected individuals, they become infectious immediately afterwards infection, and they remain infectious until they recover. We didn't mention that. We have made that assumption that once you get the disease, once you get the infection, or once you get infected, you immediately become infectious. In real life, it is not always like that. Most times, for most disease, when you get infected, it is not that moment, you do not become immediately infectious. It takes some time. For instance, malaria, when mosquito bites you, infectious female Anopheles mosquito, when it bites you, and then it transmits the parasite into your system. You do not immediately become infectious. It takes some time, about few days, maybe about 10 days, 15 days, where that parasite undergoes the liver stage. It goes through the liver stage, and so that period is called the latent stage. You know, latency, latent power, hidden, it's still hidden, it's not manifesting yet. Is that clear? So, but for this disease, we have assumed that immediately you get the disease, immediately an infected person gets the disease, it becomes infectious. That's why here I wrote infected/infectious. But so you can use this to model diseases that the period between which they become infected and they become infectious is very short, maybe in few hours. Like diseases like influenza, flu, that that period is so short, maybe one day. You can neglect them, and then you make that assumption that you have assumed that the latent period is quite negligible and short. So we made that assumption for this model that we developed, that infected individuals become infectious immediately after infection, and they remain infectious until they recover. Then homogeneous mixing, like lady mentioned, individuals have an equal probability of coming into contact with any other individual in the population. We have assumed that. But in real life too, there's, say even in this hotel, it is not everyone in this hotel. Have we come in contact with everyone in this hotel since we came? We've not. But if it's maybe in a small classroom, there is probability, or a small classroom, a crowded classroom of children, especially our public schools. I attended a public secondary school, junior secondary school, where about 100 or 150 crowded in a class. So the probability that everyone will come in contact with each other is quite high. So we have made that assumption for this model. Also, individuals acquire permanent immunity after recovery and cannot be reinfected. We mentioned that. Then another assumption that we made is that what? Transition rate awards, they are constant and will not change over time. I remember somebody was asking Mr. Sam yesterday when he was talking about time-dependent parameters. And then you asked that, are there diseases to which the parameters are constant over time? Is that not? This guy asked that question yesterday. Are there diseases that the parameters are constant, they do not change over time? No. And the response for that, it's a simplifying assumption. In reality, those rates, maybe the transmission rates, they are not constant over time. They change as time goes on. Transmission rates can change. A lot of things can be responsible for that. But to make our model simple, because we don't want our model to be too complex, we can use a simplifying assumption to say that, oh, for this particular rate, I want to assume that these rates are constant throughout the period of this modeling study. And if you want to induce some complexity, you can vary, you can make it time dependent, just like we were showing yesterday. So these are some of the assumptions that we made for this model to help simplify that simple SIR model. So we want to relax some of the assumptions in the first model. If we relax the first two, we have an SIR model with demography. We want to relax the first two assumptions and then make our model a bit complex. The first model is simple, too simple. We want to make it a bit complex to capture reality the more. Look at what is the first two assumption. See the first two. The first one is what? We have assumed that the population is what? Is closed, no births, no deaths, no migration. So we now want a model that has birth, that has deaths. Then we have also assumed that in the first one, that once you get infected, you immediately become what? Infectious. We also want to relax this second assumption. So if we relax this first two assumption, we have this, okay, if we, is it? No. If we relax the first assumption, rather, not the first two now. If we relax the first assumption, we have an SIR model with demography. Or you say an SIR model with vital dynamics. So here now, see, what has changed? We now have beds. Is it not? We now have people coming into the susceptible population via birth. Children are being given birth to. And it's denoted by this symbol, lambda. So birth. And then we also took cognizance of the fact that people die naturally, natural death, which is denoted by mu, natural death. So this model, you see now that we are increasing the complexity. The first one, no demography. Now we have done one with demography, trying to replicate the real life more. Now, let's now relax the second one again. The second one says, once you get infected, you become infectious. We want to say, okay, no, let's relax that. We now have this model. So if we relax the first two assumptions, we have an SPIR model with demography. We have included a fourth class called the what? The exposed class. I want to make a distinction in the word the exposed. Exposed. What do we mean by exposed in epidemiology? People from public health. What does it mean when you say somebody is exposed? Okay? Can we get the epidemiological definition of exposed? Yes. Susceptible. You are exposed means you are what? Epidemiologically. Okay? Do we agree? Somebody is not agreeing. Yes, ma'am. Being in contact. That's the meaning of exposed. It means, okay, being exposed in epidemiology means that you have come in contact with maybe the infectious agents. You have come in contact with the risk factor, with the infectious agents. That is epidemiologically meaning of being exposed. For instance, if a medical doctor comes in contact with an Ebola patient, we can say that person has been exposed, that doctor has been exposed to Ebola, and that exposure can lead to what? Can lead to outcome. It is either the doctor becomes what? Infected, or what? It does not become infected. Is that clear? That is the epidemiological definition of being exposed, that you have come in contact with an infectious agent, or if a mosquito, an infectious female anopheles mosquito bites someone, that is exposure, that this person is exposed. That bite, that infectious bite can lead to infection or it cannot. Now, that definition of being exposed is different from the mathematical definition of exposed. So we need to make that distinction. Now, when you are exposed, when we talk about exposed in mathematical modeling, in mathematical epidemiology, it means that this person has undergone the exposed in epidemiology, and that's it now leads to infection. That is what exposed means. It means that person is infected. In mathematical epidemiology, it means when we say exposed, it means that the person is infected. In epidemiology, That you are exposed just means you come in contact. That's why they do contact tracing. The first guy that brought COVID-19 to Nigeria then, everyone in that plane, they said, these people, they are exposed. They began to what? Look for them through contact tracing. So that is exposed. But in mathematical modeling, when we say somebody is exposed, means that person has had contact with the infectious agent and the person is infected. And the person will eventually become infectious, will eventually have the disease. That's the distinction between exposed in epidemiology and math modeling, math epi. And to avoid that confusion, that's why at the center, instead of using exposed, we use the word pre-infectious to remove that confusion. Because most times when public health people, when epidemiologists, they see the word exposed, they are having different interpretation entirely. So to remove that confusion, we use, instead of exposed, that is commonly used in math modeling, we have used the word what? Pre-infectious individuals. That means these people here, they are what? Infected, but they are not yet what? What's the difference between the two? What does it mean? It means they cannot transmit the disease. They have it, but they cannot transmit it. Just like for malaria, when and if you get an infectious bite from a female Anopheles mosquito, it is not immediately you start transmitting the disease. You do not immediately become infectious. It goes through some stages. Goes through the liver stage before it finally gets to the blood stage where you start showing symptoms. So at that liver stage, we say you are infected, but you are not yet infectious. So for this model, we have introduced this class, the E class, which we call exposed or pre-infectious individuals. So we have run through some of basic concepts in maths, in compartmental models. So let's now develop malaria models. How do we develop simple malaria models? We have seen malaria models, so let's see how to develop that. Now, before you develop any model, you must understand the biology of that system. We want to model any system. It has been emphasized several times in this workshop that there is a need for you to understand the biology of that system, if it's a biological system. If it's a physical system, you need to understand the physics. If it's a chemical system, you want to understand the chemistry of that system before you model. Because if you don't understand the biology, you'll be modeling wrongly. Like somebody told me, I think a few weeks back at our center, that she did something, her PhD was on groundwater. She's a mathematician, she was modeling ground. So let's look at some of the natural history of malaria. What is the mode of transmission for malaria? Mode of transmission, human to human, mosquito, so it's a two-stage from who to who now? From mosquito to human, from an infectious, in this case now, infectious female Anopheles. So subsequently, if we mention mosquito, if I mention mosquito, just take it that I'm referring to a female Anopheles mosquito. Do we agree? Do we come to that agreement that henceforth, once I mention mosquito, we are talking about the female Anopheles mosquito? So the mode of transmission is from an infectious mosquito to what? To human. So the mosquito takes can when the mosquito have a blood may bite the human being, it can transmit the parasites into the blood, into the system of the individual. And then after some time, the person starts showing symptoms, fever, and all that. Then, so that's on one side. Then on the other hand, an innocent mosquito too can take it, can catch the parasite from a human being. Do we know that? Some innocents are innocent. Not all mosquitoes are should be killed. Don't kill all mosquitoes. There are some that are innocent. Because if mosquitoes were to talk, you just killed me. I don't have this parasite in me. Why are you killing me? So some of them, some mosquitoes that are susceptible, they don't have the parasite. They can also, if they feed on the blood of an infectious human being, they take the parasites. They ingest the parasite from the human being, and then they also what? Become infectious. So the mode of transmission is from mosquito to human. What about latency period? Is there latency period for malaria? Once you get bitten, an infectious bite, do you immediately become infectious? No, we have mentioned this several times that it takes some time, about 10 to 15 days or so, before symptoms or before you become infectious. So there is latency period. Do we have asymptomatic infection for malaria? Is there asymptomatic infection? What are asymptomatic infection? What are the infection that what? They are not showing symptoms. They are not showing symptoms, except you now carry out some tests, and then you're able to detect the parasite in them. So they are not showing any symptoms. And that's one of the reasons why malaria elimination has been difficult, because just like Prof mentioned earlier, about 80% of infection are asymptomatic. So if we carry out a test on all of us in this room, right, find out that many of us are asymptomatic. So there's asymptomatic. So if you want to model malaria and you want to capture reality, you should include the asymptomatic population. Because just like you said, if about 80% of the of infection are asymptomatic, and then you now neglect them, you do not incorporate them, you see that your model is not going to do well. So we have asymptomatic infection. What's the most vulnerable population? The most vulnerable population for malaria. Children under 5 and what? And pregnant women. Children under 5 because they don't develop the immunity. So you want to develop a good malaria model that is capturing reality. You should capture that heterogeneity in vulnerability, where you have an age-structured model. You have the population of children under 5, and then you can have a population of adults to be able to capture that vulnerability in under 5 children. Is it an epidemic or an endemic disease? Huh? Epidemic or endemic? What's the difference between the two? Yes, ma'am. Global. Mhm.
Bolo. Then what else? Nationally, like Nigeria, see, malaria is endemic in Nigeria. It's it's more. I think it's more as in it's more endemic. It is particular to a particular.
Okay, so okay, all right. Somebody wants to say something. Yes, sir. Spike in that in the outbreak. Thank you. So epidemic, a short outbreak. Just maybe there are areas, it could even be or malaria. There are areas where they don't experience the disease, but then suddenly you have an outbreak of malaria in that particular region. You find that, and most times it happens in a short period. Remember the Ebola epidemic. It happens just for a short period. Unlike malaria, malaria has been is persistent. Many of us were born into it, would grow old and still live, and malaria is still in, so it's endemic, it's persistent. So we are saying that malaria is an endemic disease. So how will that affect our model? What's the implication when you are developing a malaria model? Who can tell us what will be the implication, having known that malaria is endemic and not an epidemic disease? What's the implication? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. 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 What else? What are the implications? When we say when you are modeling an endemic disease, the way you model an endemic disease is different from the way you model epidemic disease. Now we are saying that malaria is endemic. So how does that affect our model? Who wants to try? What is the implication? We mentioned it earlier. Is anybody raising their hand? Can only you can only minimize it. How does that have effect on your model, on the model you are developing? So one implication is that, just like we mentioned earlier, when we were starting with that simple model, remember that first model we had, we said it's suitable for modeling epidemic disease. We did not incorporate births, we did not incorporate deaths because it happens for a short period of time. But malaria is endemic. Many of us will give birth into the population. There will also be natural deaths, is it not? So it means that if I'm developing a malaria model, I have to capture what? Recruitment into it. Maybe through birth, through migration, and then I also want to capture natural deaths. People in the population will die naturally. Is that clear? So we want to capture those demographic factors because it's a disease that has come to stay, that is persistent in the population. Unlike a disease where it's just a shock within maybe 1 month, or a disease or an outbreak of say 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you may want to neglect birth. You may want to neglect natural death because you say, okay, this is quite a short time. They might not really have much effect on my model. So, does it lead to death? Does malaria lead to death? Severe malaria leads to death. So, it means that I want to develop a malaria model. I should what? I should capture what? I should capture the disease, the malaria-induced death, the death due to malaria. So, I'm having two deaths now. For those that have the disease, the infectious class, I'm going to see that So I should capture the disease-induced deaths in my model. Do recovered individuals, recovered in quotes, become fully protected against reinfection, especially for PF? Prof mentioned it while he was displaying the work earlier, that for PF malaria, that the recovery you have is pseudo recovery. Usually for diseases, when you recover, you develop an immunity that protects you against reinfection for some time before maybe the immunity might start waning, and then. But for PF malaria, we only have what we call the anti-disease immunity. It reduces the probability, the symptoms or the fever disappears, but then the parasite is not fully cleared. It does not confer anti-parasite immunity. So for PF malaria, it only gives the anti-disease immunity that only just like a surface that just clears the fever, the symptoms. And so that is why most times when you recover from PF malaria, you become susceptible again. You do not. That's why if you see the model that Prof presented, we did not have an explicitly R class where we keep people there, because we know that for PF malaria, you recover and then you become susceptible again. So that leads us to our model, our simple malaria model. Having seen all this, we now have the model, the simple malaria model that captures many of those things. So we have the susceptible individuals, and then I missed to say is the mode of transmission. You want to develop a malaria model, you should capture the mosquito population. Some persons develop malaria models and they leave out the vector population. It's not right. You should capture, because the mode of transmission is from mosquito to human. So for this, we have the human population here, and then we have the what? The mosquito population. So susceptible humans, their recruitment through birth. Now, when a susceptible human comes in contact with an infectious mosquito, there is transmission. Can we see the red arrow? There is transmission, and then so susceptible humans, they move, they transit, they become infectious. This is a pre-infectious class or the latent stage, the latent period, where they are not yet infectious, but they are infected. So we call it the pre-infectious class. And then after some days, few days, they progress to the infectious class. The infectious class, and then they can recover. They recover to become what? Susceptible again. Now look at this infectious. So I've made one assumption here. Remember, I mentioned that if you want to develop a realistic malaria model, you should have the asymptomatic class, and then you should also have the symptomatic. But what have I done here? What do we have here? We have a model that has lumped both what? Asymptomatic and the what? Into one class. Which class is it? Which class was it lumped into? Which of the classes? The what? The infectious class. So we have lumped both the asymptomatic class, humans, and the symptomatic humans into this place. But if you want to develop a realistic model, you should distinguish them, separate the two compartments. So look at this, the infectious human class. We have the natural deaths, and then plus what? Malaria-induced death. Everybody, the susceptible humans die naturally. Pre-infectious humans die naturally. But the guys here, they die naturally, and they also die due to what? Due to the disease. Natural death, when we talk about natural death, you are modeling malaria. Natural death are death caused by any other thing aside that disease. If you are modeling COVID-19, for instance, natural death, any death in the population aside COVID-19. So the death could be from anything. It could be from, if it is accidents, any other cause. You term them, in modeling, we term those deaths natural death. But the one caused by that disease in question is termed the disease-induced deaths. So look at this class, these people, the infectious humans, they can also interact with these innocent susceptible mosquitoes, and then they give them parasites. So these guys that are innocent, they can also transit into the pre-infectious class and also progress to the infectious class. So we also have the natural death, and then they are recruited through birth. So this is a simple malaria model. Now let's move forward. Let's see, how do we incorporate interventions? We have several interventions for malaria. How do we incorporate these interventions into malaria models? We can incorporate control and preventive measures such as LLINs, IRS, and SMC. We also have vaccination, treatment, etc. into our models in order to determine their impact. Now, in order to incorporate these interventions into our model, we look closely at how each measure is employed and the effect it has on the spread of the disease. You study the intervention. How does this intervention work? How is it being deployed? And that will now inform how we incorporate it into your model. So let's now develop a model and incorporate our intervention. But just like Prof mentioned yesterday, the model construction begins with defining a clear question based on the policy. So we want to develop, let's see, firstly, let's come up with a policy-driven question. And that is, look at this question here. Can we read the question? On the transmission dynamics of malaria in Nigeria. So this is a policy-driven question. We have deployed LLI in Nigeria for some time. We want to know, what is the impact of LLI? Has LLI been effective? Should we continue using it, or we should do away with it? Now you want to use your modeling to estimate the impacts of LLI. So to do that, we'll develop a model that incorporates LLI. So how do we incorporate LLI into our model? Now, incorporating LLIs into malaria models, the effect of using LLI is twofold. LLI is in twofold, the effects. Number one is that what? It can reduce the number of bites from mosquitoes as they physically provide a barrier between the mosquito and the human. Do we get that? That's one of the effects of LLI. It acts as a barrier between the mosquito and the human that is sleeping inside it. That's one of its work. Another thing it does is that what? It reduces the population of the mosquito. Once a mosquito touches the net that is still efficacious, that is still working well, what happens to the mosquito? It kills the chemical, the insecticide there, kills the mosquito. So it does two things. It acts as a barrier, one, and then it also does what? It kills the mosquito. Now, having known this, we need to learn how do we now incorporate these two effects of LLI into our malaria model. Now, so let LLI pros be the protection conferred by LLI. So the protective effectiveness of LLI is a function of two things. It's a function of the efficacy of LLI and the LLI coverage. The efficacy, how well will LLI work under ideal situation in laboratory settings? How does LLI work? Now, when LLI is now rolled out, is now deployed in communities, the protective effectiveness of LLI is also a function of how people use it. Do they comply with it? Do they use it correctly? So those are some of those things that will affect the effectiveness. So we capture that using what? L-line efficacy as a product of that and the coverage. Now, so the effect of L-lines are incorporated into the rate of transmission. How do this effect of L-line? Firstly, remember we said L-line does two things. It acts as a barrier. So we are going to incorporate it into the rate of transmission. Into the rate of transmission. That is from the SH class to the EH class. And from the SM class to the EM class with the reduction parameter. I'm going to explain that, given as 1 minus L-line. So let's look at this. Let's look at this model. So look at it. This is a transmission. So we incorporate our L-line here into the transmission from the SH class to the EH class. We now introduce L-line effect here. We also introduce it here too. That means if there is an innocent mosquito that wants to bite a guilty human being, let me use that word. Guilty in the sense that the person has the malaria, but the person is sleeping inside the net. This mosquito does not have the parasite, but the human has the parasite, but is sleeping inside the net. It means that what? The mosquito that does not, the susceptible mosquito that does not have the parasite, if it tries to come in, it's what the L-line will serve as a barrier to it and can also kill it. So we capture it in this rate of transmission. So here and here. Then we also captured, remember we said that L-line also kills mosquito. So look at it. For mosquitoes, we have natural death plus what? Death due to what? L-line. For all of it, all the mosquitoes, whether they are susceptible, whether they are in the pre-infectious stage, or whether they are already, there's a mistake here. It should be infectious, not infected now. It should be infectious mosquitoes. So once any of these mosquitoes in any of these classes comes in contact with L-line, they will die due to the L-line if the L-line still has that capacity. So we have captured that, the effect of L-line in our model. So also a separate death rate in each of the mosquito level. Now what happens when L-line protectiveness is equal to 1? Let's look at it. What happens if this protection, L-line protection, is 100%? The protective effectiveness of L-line, if it is 100%, then we say this guy equals to 1. Is 1. So what happens if this guy equals to 1? There will be no what? If the L-line is 100% effective, that means L-line approach is 1. So 1 minus 1 is what? 0 times transmission. There will not be transmission if you have a very effective L-line. If the L-line, the effectiveness is just 50%, what happens? 50%. That means when in comparison with somebody that is not using the L-line, that the transmission will just be full transmission. So 50% will be 0.5, right? So we have 1 minus 0.5. So that means that person will be having about half transmission. There will be half transmission in comparison with when there is no what? L-line. So this parameter is called a reduction parameter that helps us to reduce transmission. Now, what if this guy is equal to 0? What happens? If it is equal to 0, what does that mean? If L-line effectiveness equals to 0, what does it mean? It means that what? The L-line, no protection, and 1 minus 0 is what? 1 times transmission. That means the L-line it's no good. There's no difference between somebody using that LLI and what using it. So maybe in that LLI there are holes, big holes in it that it does not even, or the chemical has faded, the insecticide. So the mosquito can, there's no barrier. There are huge holes. So you say that the protective effectiveness is zero, and there's no difference between somebody using it and another person that is not using LLI. So this is how we can incorporate um, an intervention, say LLI, into the malaria model. So I think it's time for us to now develop our own model and incorporate some other interventions. What other interventions did we mention aside LLIM? IRS, SMC, what else? IPTP, intermittent preventive treatments in pregnancy, yes. Case management, treatments using an ACT, you can incorporate all those things. If I want to incorporate maybe treatments into my model, how do I do that? Who can tell us? Where do we put it? Remember when we wanted to incorporate LLI, see where we put it? On the transmission to help us reduce, it reduces transmission and it also leads to the death of mosquitoes. If it is treatments, where do we put it? Where do we put our treatment? Yes, so it's going to be here. So we are going to be having the recovery rate here. It's going to be recovery due to ACT, due to treatments, and that rate will be faster. So we can do that. So I think we can try this. Maybe we can put this out or snap it, and then at our spare time, we can try our hands on it, develop models, malaria models now, which should be malaria that incorporate asymptomatic individuals and ACT treatment. ACT is artemisinin-based combination therapy. Is the drug for treating malaria. Then develop models incorporating asymptomatic individuals and vaccination. We can also try our hands on it. Vaccine has been deployed in Nigeria, so we want to see the impact of vaccine on malaria. Then also develop models that incorporate asymptomatic individuals and SMC. So we can try out, put our hands on how to develop some of these things. So at this juncture, I want to take a bow. Thank you very much. Where is the leader?
So much. It's actually, for me, I think the class should not actually end. And I was saying the way it was moving from one step to another. Now, even if you are not a mathematician, at least you can relate with what we are doing in motive, right? Have you been able to relate thus far? Now, it may not be 100% for you to relate everything, because obviously there are times he was trying as much as possible to bring us from epidemiology to mathematics and all of that. But I want to believe that you have been able to pick few things. And then for my mathematics family, we have also seen that our maths very powerful. And this same thing that we are using, the same maths, that same model, it seems to be using to communicate with public health people, but in a way that they can be able to understand. Now we have come to a good point for us to ask questions in case there are questions or there are clarifications to make. So it's all going well, and I'm very happy the way we are moving. So let's just permit people to ask questions. I have one hand up here. So I give one, I give two, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's a good one. So after that, we go for the next class.
All right, thank you. The first question I have is the use of infected and infectious. From what you have said, there is a point you got to, you say, this is not correct, it's supposed to be infection. Does that mean that in any flow diagram, the word infected or infected class should not even be used at all? Or under what condition can we use infected and what other condition, whether it is the human compartment or the mosquito compartment? So I want you to clarify that. Then the second question is about the issue of interventions. Like the assignment you have given us now, you said, I think we have been diagnosed for each of the. Now, can I do a model that include all of them at once? All the interventions?
Thank you so much. So we'll take the question one after the other.
All right,
Please
so-
respond to that.
So the first question is on the infected and then the infectious. If you recall, for the first model, we showed the SIR model, where there is we did not capture the exposed class or the free infectious class. We said I is called the what? Infected slash infectious. So if you have a model where you are not, maybe the disease, the latent stage is negligible. That's your I. So your I is going to be called both infected and infectious. You say these people in this class, they are both infected and infectious. But a disease like malaria, where we know that there is a latent period where when people get infected, they do not immediately become infectious. Infected means you have the parasite, but you are not yet transmitting it. But when you now get to the point of infectious, you are not infectious, it means you are both infected and infectious. So for malaria models, and then you want to capture the exposed class or the pre-infectious class, you now need to make that distinction. If I'm not capturing those two things, if I'm using just a single class, I can call them the infected class or the infection. But once I'm making the distinction, so media, can I get the model? Once you are making the distinction or you are adding the exposed class, yes, thank you. So, let me see this down. So now, look at this. These guys here, they are both. Now, okay, this is where where did I make? Okay, here it was corrected. We have infectious mosquitoes. Why these are pre-infectious? So these guys here, they are infected, but they are not infectious. The people here, they are infected already, but they are not yet. So that's why we call them pre-infectious individuals. But here, they have now progressed into the stage where they are now being infectious. But if you see, so that's why I said in the other one that there is an error there where the slide is not moving any longer. So if you see the last model, okay. So that's why I look at this now. That's why I say there is a mistake. This should be infectious. Because these guys too, they are what? The guys here in this middle class, they are what?
They are infected.
They are infected already. So this should not be infected again. This should now be infectious. Did you get the clarification? So infected, that's the first stage. And then the next stage is you start becoming infectious. But if it's a model that you want to lump, you don't want to make these two distinctions, you can just call it the infected slash the infectious class. And then the second question was talking about
intervention,
all
how
the interventions. Yes, you can put up the interventions, all of them, but it means that your model will be very complex. Although there are models, there are agent-based models where you can easily, there are although these are ready-made models that you can just plug in all those interventions. But you want to develop a compartmental model like this, and you now put in all the interventions. It might be a bit complex. So sometimes you want to be focused on the particular research question you are answering. Say I want to look at the impact of vaccination, for instance. But then it does not rule out the fact that in your model, there are baseline interventions that are, for instance, in the whole population, like LLIN. LLIN has been rolled out, so we can incorporate LLINs. We can also incorporate treatments while still looking at vaccination. So depending on the complexities of a model determines how much intervention you have. Yes, you can put all of it, but it means that your model will be much more complex. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm sorry I have to take you out of my way. For example, because my special interest is in cholera. So we know the government provides chlorinated water, treated water, boreholes. So in a situation like that, I think, okay, those interventions are the ones representing the LLI in malaria. So how do we put that in cholera? Thank you.
So, all right, thank you. So now, just like I mentioned earlier, that before you incorporate any intervention, you must what? You must look closely at how each measure is employed. Just like for LLI, we saw how LLI, the operation of LLI, that is in two folds. The number one, it acts as a barrier, and that was incorporated in the transmission because there is a barrier that blocks transmission. So we incorporated that into the model. And then we also saw that it also kills the mosquito. So for cholera, for instance, we want to look at the effect of or the impact of maybe wash, clean water, hygiene, and all that. So what would that be doing? Which aspects of the transmission dynamics which will water be addressing? Which aspects? Can you answer? Huh? What will clean water do? It will do what? If there is clean water, as against when somebody goes to take contaminated water or goes into a river that is contaminated, when there is clean water, what does it do?
It prevents transmission.
It reduces the transmission. So that means where am I going to be putting that intervention? It's going to be focused on the transmission parts, just like for LLI. Do you get it? So it's going to reduce the transmission. So you can say the protective effectiveness of this wash, whatever, you can use a parameter and then introduce a reduction parameter, just like we did for LLI. But unlike in LLI, where LLI also kills the mosquitoes. But for cholera, you know that you don't have vector. It's not a vector-borne disease. But then you have the what's it called now? The Vibrio one. So it's going to reduce that transmission from the Vibrio cholerae to the susceptible humans, and that's going to be captured in the transmission, just like for the line. So the bottom line is understand the particular intervention. How does it work? Once you understand that, you now know which particular aspect of your model is going to be affected. Thank you. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for that definition. My question actually is that I'm looking at something about this model and about modeling in general as well. When we are talking about this schematic diagram now, and at the point where we are now trying to introduce all these positivity, elements of solution and this at what point? And then I remember yesterday that Bob said something about all this positivity, disease prevention. That is what people actually dwell most on when dealing with modeling. So what is this like? What is supposed to be the thing we have to look out for? And then are we supposed to like after getting this diagram, after having our thematic diagram, how do we know that okay, this is the next thing? Like, am I to go for the BFE first, or I should first of all go and do the positivity type of it?
All right, so he asked that Prof did not show positivity about NS in the paper that he prepared. I think you are supposed to have added it to the one you answer.
So what is your focus? Now, modeling, we have the qualitative aspects and then the quantitative aspects. The qualitative analysis mostly carried out by mathematicians. You want to look at the qualitative behavior of a model. You want to check that these classes, the solutions, they are positive for all time. The population are bounded, so you want to check all those things. Now, but there's also the quantitative aspect, which is more relevant for the public health, for policy making. The policy maker, just like Prof mentioned, is not interested in your positivity. It does not have any relevance to him, your boundedness. What they want to see is they want to see the quantitative aspect. They want to see the quantitative analysis, your scenarios. You are now saying, okay, we have introduced airline into our model. We're able to quantify how has airline been able to reduce malaria cases in Nigeria. That is what the public health official wants to see. He wants to see those quantitative. So depending on your focus, on your direction, just like Prof mentioned, all the presentations we've not talked about since yesterday. We've not mentioned positivity. We've not mentioned, but I think Prof can also share more light on. Okay.
Before Prof says something about what we are trying to do nowadays is to, reduce the mathematics as much as possible. Because many people, they run away from this mathematics. So, because if the mathematics is too much, the real policymakers, they may be scared from reading it. So what we are now trying to do, in fact, as I sat down here, I was ruminating about it. Maybe we only need to be using one sentence to say that the possibility of solution back then, all these things have been verified, and they were found to be so. Then we proceed to more important issues where the mathematics will be meaningful. Because whatever mathematics we are doing, if we cannot relate it biologically and we cannot interpret the results, it's meaningless. So that is why I'm reading to his mind. That will be why, again, that will be why he didn't show all those things. And many of the journals now, publishing houses, when the mathematics is too much, they'll throw your paper away. They will advise to go and publish it in a mathematical oriented journals where the readability is limited. I mean, the people that want such articles, they are not so many. So that is that.
Or they ask you
You read Prof's mind. How did that go to
So yes, I was saying yesterday that we have the academic model. Now it depends on where your research is focusing on. If you want to focus on academic models, you are not supposed to be here. Are you getting me now? You are in the wrong place. Because the academic models, you don't do like for everything, you already have positivity in all the papers. So you keep repeating the same thing. If you gather all the 100 papers, it's the same. Are you getting that? And it is always towards methodology, the same methodology. Now, in this, if you want to do, in fact, generally, the best way to do any research is to start from question. But most mathematicians don't understand that concept. They start from method. And the method is not even their own. It's the existing method. Positivity is your own. It's something that has been done. You don't use it. But people will still say, we carry out positivity as if their own thing. So the issue is not just the positivity, because the positivity does not make your model, your boundedness and all those things, does not make it Nobel. It's not no, there's nothing no novelty that, because it's already exists. Now, when you want to focus on maths, it's when yesterday when I was putting up the mathematical list in wish list. Some of the things I said was that if you want to do novelty, after you have done all this basic mathematical, if in that direction you want to work, then novelty, you have to do what I call secondary analysis. With that secondary analysis, you now be picking your own new theorem from that model. New theorem that is not in any paper. That's what is going to be Nobel. And it will towards mathematical. So it means that you have a very strong background in functional analysis for you to be able to do that. If you don't, then you may not be able to try well in that area. You just, if they gather hundreds of your paper together, everything will be the same. Are you getting what I'm saying now? Yes, you just change disease and then you repeat the same process. You change disease, you repeat the same process, you draw, and then all those ones, nobody is using them. So you are just there, you are making yourself happy. The best you can get, you get promoted, right? After the promotion, there is nothing for you. Are you getting that? You are not making any influence in the environment. Now, if you want to engage in something like this, where you are meeting stakeholders, you are discussing with people in the public space, by the grace of God, Kamla is a national consultant for NNEP, National Malaria for Modeling, by the grace of 2023. So, we cannot confront models with just three possibilities for you to do that kind of thing. Now, so that was why I said, like, you have to go through the route of operational model. And you see, this area is talking about that aspect from the identification of your problem in terms of research question, and then to data conceptualization, to model development that has to deal with parameter estimation and calibration and model validation. And then we talk about the interpretation of results and evaluation of results and all that. So all of those things are of interest. Building your scenario analysis, and then both prospective and retrospective analysis. So those one are the interest of and that's so you see, if you see three papers, they will never be the same. Because they are addressing different questions. If you have 100 papers in this area, it will never be the same, because it's not the same question. So that's the uniqueness of this area that you are. And then apart from that, if you also want to do the academic one, it's only when you give from the point of view of the question that you can have something different. But when you give it from the point of view of, I want to carry out what's called global stability positivity, you keep repeating the same thing. And then apart from that, just like what Prof said, you will not be able to communicate to anybody. Do you understand? You will only be able to communicate within the mathematics community. And then that's all. So at the end of the day, your math is not solving your community problem. Now, in the academia, there are 4 things. Let me say 4 to 5 things about the academia. Teaching. Smallest. So when you see somebody in the academia, don't see him as a teacher. He's not a teacher. Teaching is this. The next one, the previous one is research. And then community development, innovation. Academia is made of 4 things. Are you getting me now? So as you are here, we consult. We have number of those NGOs that we consult for. Are you getting that? So part of it is research, community development, and innovation. Yes. So this teaching, you just go to class and lecture, give notes. That's not. This is the list of it. So if you are going to be the academia, I just want to teach them that your level of impact, your level of impact will be 10% global. 10%. Are you getting that? But if you want to make impact global, research, innovation, community development, make a global impact and local impact. Are you getting that? So that is one thing you have to know. So it's not about just doing positivity, permanent, but beyond that, what can you see yesterday I was talking about what is the mathematics there? Careful reasoning, reasoning out of the box, thinking out of the box, being able to think out beyond what matters, not just the legal, but the thinking. So I think that is it.
Thank you so much for us. You still want to based on this, okay. It's great that we are, I'm happy they're asking questions. These are young mathematicians like also. They want to get a lot of things cleared. Thank you, sir. Please, I want to ask this question because you're a mathematician and as a young mathematician, if I want to do a research now, okay, currently I'm doing my NSC and currently doing my project, and I'm already on this route of doing the usual thing everybody is doing, sensitivity analysis, and DFE, DE, all those things. So I want to know, what can I do to satisfy my lecturers, like on the maths field now, not to public health now, what can I do to satisfy them, but I'll still do something that is different?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. What are you working on? What disease?
Yes.
Okay. What's the question you are addressing? How many questions are you addressing?
Sir.
How many questions are you addressing?
So what are they? Edit. Misuse. Also the transmission.
Okay, what is it about edibility? What is your question around edibility?
Major question. Edit. Is how many, what is the threshold that a particular, I'm focusing on Africa. So what threshold should Africa reach in 30 minutes?
Are you working with any data?
It's current.
Which kind of data?
I actually put this for the WHO.
So that means is it again data or what kind of data? Is it incident data or cumulative?
Incidents.
Is it incidents or cumulative?
I have incidents. I have 3%. And I have 10%.
Okay, the incident you have, how many days?
I have
Is it one period? Is it monthly?
yearly.
Yearly.
Look back from 2010.
For the whole of Africa. Oh, for whole Africa. Because you say anywhere in Africa that you have this.
All of that.
Okay, the whole of Africa.
Okay, think that before I can get it's recent I don't that.
Okay, I think
I will
that,
try to get it.
okay, so if I will help you. You are going beyond, like that data is not going to be useful in doing anything. You can understand what I'm saying? If you want to
Actually,
work,
just get a thanks.
Nigeria, if you can do something in Nigeria, even if it's just a state of Nigeria, and you are able to tackle that problem, I think it's better. You can contact Mrs. Bolaji. Am I right? Babalola, sorry. So she can help you with data on news for Nigeria. Then maybe for Bodo, there are cases in Bodo. Those are equivalent, high equivalent hotspots of the news. So if you get data from that side, so we help you to do something that is more home, local. You understand? And then another thing you also have to know is that now the question you want to address is very, very important for every people in terms of your results. That question, that's why it's like every house starts from the foundation. When the foundation is not well built, it's not. So the question very important. And that question is going to determine many things. You can still do two. You understand? You can do both academic model and professional. It's not that your maths family would like to see. But you will now do some secondary analysis that is not found in all these normal literatures. Yes, with your question. That question you are seeing, I can build a theorem for you on it, and then you need to prove it, and then develop something that is new, novel, based on your model. So it depends on how much you would like to interact with. I don't which school are you? Place of Abuja. Who are you working with there?
Okay, Dr. Arthur.
Okay, Abba. So, I mean, she's one that has to come in. So I think you should look at that. Look at state level subnational issue. You understand? We have enough problem here in Nigeria. Don't go to Africa. Stay home. No, you get better. This woman will give you better. You know that. Let me tell you something. You know why I'm telling you that? If you are able to solve that problem, then there's no business. I tell you the truth. If you solve that problem, then get job. If you solve that problem and you publish it and you send it to their dictionary, I solve this particular problem, they will call you. I tell you the truth. They will give you job if you are able to solve that problem. Not just like doing possibility. You give them the solution on the operational and you give them the policy recommendation from your model. They tell you to come and present it. You will get job. You see, I get people that there is job in Nigeria, but there are no qualified people. Very few qualified because people are not skillful. Now it's not enough to do maths, so you have to do the skill. The aspect of the skill is what we are doing now. If you don't have the skill, you do the maths, it's like bread without butter. Yes, you have the bread, or you don't have butter, or you don't have egg, fried egg, and teeth. It will be dry. So you need that skill. When you have the skill, like modeling skill, data analytics skill to your mathematics. Are you getting me now? So that's what I want to tell you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so I have two more people, and then we will drop the content from.
Thank you so much.
Ask child or questions. So there's not going to be but
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Shegun. Thank you. So when you are talking about FDNI that CB is equal to 1 and all those stuff. So I was discussing my colleague here. I would like to ask people in Malaria, maybe the program manager or prayer consultant, please, how do we determine the effectiveness of our NLIF, for instance? Because for instance, you see that the number of nets that W should just give us that all, but we don't know, sorry to say, we don't even know our population. You see our population or what you just distributed to people that people are not even using, that they even go and wash with the detergent. How do you, I just want to know so that you help our modeling too.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you respond to that question, sir?
So that effectiveness that I mentioned is a function of two things. It's a function, the protective effectiveness that when airline is being deployed in your house, or you are being, there's a campaign of airline, the effectiveness it confers on you is a function of firstly the efficacy of airline. The efficacy is telling us how well airline will do in ideal situation in laboratory setting. And I think it's around 0.9 something percent.
98%.
Efficacious. So laboratory settings. Now that efficacy is now brought down by the coverage. How many persons get airline? Now, even when they now get it, how do they use it? Do they comply with it? Now, take notes. Suppose the efficacy of airline is 98%. But then you now get the airline. You didn't use it correctly, or you didn't set it well. How is that going to affect the protective effectiveness it's going to confer? You see that it's going to reduce the protective effectiveness of airline itself. Even though the efficacy is quite high, but the way you use it wrongly, you are not complying or adhering to the way it should be used, or it is being used and then there are holes. So it's going to affect the effectiveness. So that's how the effectiveness is being calculated. So for this now, we know the efficacy is around 98%, 0.9 times the coverage of airline for a particular location. The coverage can be, say, 50% coverage or 30% coverage or 40%. So when you find the products of these two guys, you get the protective effectiveness of airline. So for the paper the prof presented, I think it's around for the protective effectiveness,
No, so that's coverage now.
For the coverage is
Right,
0.38
multiply
times
now.
0.9. So you see that it brings down the effectiveness, the protective effectiveness that LLIN will confer on you when you now use it.
Okay, so I think that's the challenge now, that he's thinking that how are these figures, how do we arrive at these figures?
Yes, I think there are data. Mr. Heidi can.
Yes, so I wanted to talk about that. There are studies that are carried out, right, by MI, Malaria Indicator Survey, right, where they go to see how people are using the treatment, right? So it's a survey that is on that keeps on going every 5 years, for DHS, and then MIS is a follow-up to that. So where they go to places and find out if people are using it or not. So, and when they do that, they now quantify and give the values for each of the states across the country, right? Now, one thing is that they have not come to my house before. It's a matter of sampling process, it's sampling, right? So maybe you have not been lucky to have been sampled. So that's when they have come to. But they do that study, and its usage, they go and check people, are they using it? So coverage is a function of distribution and usage. They go and that's what I'm saying. That this national study, no wait. Now it's all study in any study.
Slightly, she wants to say something. She wants to.
In any study, yeah. Okay, yes, we have somebody. And so let's hear them.
So, okay. Survey. So this survey is that people go into houses and ask how they use the media questions. Did you sleep inside your net the previous night? So each of the results are gotten from each state that represents the country's national data. That's one. I don't know if I answered your question. Then the other one, even the net that is being used, like my state, there's even a research where they have this vector sentinel site.
Yeah.
Actually inform the kind of next LNI that going to a particular site. They don't just pick next like that and deploy. They have to do a research, make sure that this particular next is good or it's good for the that particular geographical area. Because for us, the people we are using cryonics based on the research, the recommendation from that side. They check biting period. There are a lot of things. They have insecticide and resistance monitoring. There are a lot of research that are going on in University of Rio teaching hospital before you can deploy this nets into the field. Then I wanted to also ask a question. You said it has two effects, which is
protective and the killing effect.
Has the killing and also the barrier, a protection thereby limiting the transmission. Now, even if you're not using it, let's just put it like that. Let's leave the theory and put it on the layman basis. Even that I know the same mosquito biting peak period is in the night around 2 and all those things. Even if I use that net, I'm not saying what to do it, right? If I use it for something else, provided that net is in that particular place, like a layman understanding, it will give that killing effect. And then by reducing mosquito density. If you are using, let's say this house, they are not using it, this other house is using it, as well as people in that community are using it, that already reduced
paper any
of that mosquito before you might not stop for using sleeping inside the barrier and stopping the transmission. So there are actually things that involve even the coverage to be able to get that coverage in household. There's actually a formula, a calculation being used to be able to, and that population that you're talking about is based on projected population 2006 census So they don't have, depending on the state, each state has the growth rates. Then they now project the population of it, and then there's a calculation they use to be able to determine the coverage. But for for the state, for NNI, and even the one that is deployed in my state, they are looking at 100% coverage now. So I don't know, I'm trying to look at the new,
From
They
June,
are
I've
looking at, they are
I said that.
projecting, they are projecting, you heard them, they are projecting, that's the intention of the program. The program wants to reach 100, but they may not be able to reach 100 now. Yes.
We from public health, from malaria, from
Check the
biology, come together. Look at the commission she has brought to us now. So if I was going to work in apply on that, working with that, just allow the operation for them. People want. Yes. So I think
So I think that mathematicians, we should not doubt what is going on the field. You have not been to the field to really know if you see people at work. We cannot bring down our enemy. They are doing a lot. Do you understand? We want them to do more. But there are things they project. They might not have been able to reach that goal, but they are doing something. So if we get to realize, like Paul said, interact with people like this, now you see what they are doing. So those things that you feel, and there can be some limitation, I think. So the question was putting forward before that, did you see them using it? No, there are statistical way of measuring. You cannot necessarily go and speak with them. You can at best deploy questionnaire in some situation. Yes. No, she said are looking at, they are projecting, they have a goal. Wait. Just wait now. They have a goal of reaching 100. Even when they reach 100, it does not mean 100% will use it. I'm working on Aquarium, for instance, and usage is quite low. Is that okay? And it's reported that it's low. And that's all we're using in modeling. But the fact that when they say the report, it's low, quite low everywhere. So when they quantify that usage, it's low. You are not using, so it's low. So it's low. It's truly low when they quantify it. But they are talking about they want to reach. Well, I think the first thing that they want to get it to you. Then it's thing that you should not use. So they want to cover 100%. If they cover the next thing, now make you to use it also. So
so that help with traffic. Then you look at other state, and then you pick the national malaria strategic plan. Just those three documents and LNI guidelines. I think 4 documents will answer your question.
Well, I know that's paper, but I was trying to get. Okay, so one thing I have to when you say reality, when you say reality, it's not my own. I said the best. So it's more than this idea. One guy, I'm sure the one that there. If I say that, I'll stay that. You got to sit down and ask, and then use my computer. Right? So that's very sensitive from going. No, not all the time. So you have an entire government, so this is what you got to rush off it. And yet, I'm like, so the one thing I do now, yeah, it's put everyone's
Okay, so I have 2 questions. The first one is, I heard when you were teaching that something about the intervention data. So I thought about, I think I would like to confirm. Can survey data too be used for modeling? It can be used. Okay.
Okay, so another thing again, I would like to know, because I know that modeling is the statistical modeling I have seen mostly relating to infectious disease or my area of interest is maternal and child and also climate health. So I wanted to know, can I know that I've seen some studies relating to maternal and child, but I wanted to, because I know that that's not something Nigeria has really digged into it yet. So, but uh, I'm curious as to how that works. That's actually what brought me here, because I believe that understanding how malaria modeling works will give me an insight into how that's needed.
So I think you want to respond to the issue of maternal egg and climate, um, climate.
Okay, so what particular question are you trying to answer? So if you can define the question you want to answer in the maternal and child, then you should be able to develop a model that can address the question, just like Prof has been emphasizing that modeling starts with defining a clear question, a policy-driven question. So if you get that question, a well-defined question for that particular area, you can develop and then use some of the ideas we've been taught for this period to develop a model and then you incorporate. And also for health, climate, yeah. There are studies, Mr. Sam is working on climate, so there are also studies on climate. There are literature, there are previous work, and then you can also incorporate that. Once you have a well-defined question you want to answer, you just need to study how those, just like we did for LLI, how does LLI affect transmission? So once you study the behavior, how does the climates, those climatic factors, how do they affect your particular disease? Then you see how you can incorporate them into your model.
But thank you so much. I think that answers the question. And then, okay, Prof wanted to give a comment before I give the last question.
Thank you. My comment is about assumptions. There is a need to back them up with citations to show that we are not just making assumptions. There are critical evidences to back them up. So put citations there where you have an idea that kind of assumptions could be made in formulating your model. So I think that is very important. Then the other comment I have is that he has done a good job, and I think he deserves a round of applause once again. That is just like every other person that has been giving talk, they have been doing a good job. He gave that talk without making making too much entry behavior. That is, as something that you could have learned this, you could have known this. It simplified the talk, and it made it to be easily understood.
Thank you.
So I think it deserves that happen.
Thank you, Kel.
Thank you so much. I think your first comment when Prof was explaining the paper that it was published, it was when he was talking about assumption about people when they recover. I think they were well cited or clinical papers that
Yes. So for publications, thank you. So for publications, it's necessary we cite some of those because we just but yeah, it's okay.
all right. So last person.
Can we talk about the difference between economic evaluation and I took a minute course on economic evaluation. So speaking through this, I'm starting to think that it's like this mathematical model is like an advanced method for conducting economic. I want to ask you that's right. And the second one is a request. I want to ask if you can display one of your analyses on R, like a back end of one of your models. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Okay, on that, maybe the R class, when, if there is time, if we, the R man might display some of those, back end where you, then because there's no time, we would have put you through how you do simulations in R, how some of these models, how you can simulate and then see the trajectories of, say, the susceptible class, humans and all that. But I think you can. Then on, math models and, yes, there are economic models where you, after you've, done your modeling, say for instance, LLI now, you now want to see, you want to carry out a cost effectiveness analysis. You have said that, LLI is going to reduce this. What about the costs? And then that's where I think, economic models can now come into economic models. Huh? No, they are. Okay, the prof wants to say something. Yeah, economic.
And then we are now doing those perspective skill analysis like studies. So in terms of, I'm saying that I'm a good person. I think that if say the best for production is parameter. Say the best, right? So at that point, I need to now bring about the cost. Like, okay, that which is presented line that is bringing down, giving me like 2 million cases about it for malaria between 2026 and 2030. So then I will need a better cost. You understand? So your health economics model is dependent on the mathematical model outputs. Do you understand? So it is when you have done the mathematical model, the optimization that the mathematical model is bringing to you is what will inform your economics model. So after optimizing, you have seen out of all the scenarios, you have seen the one that is averting the cases most or maybe bringing down the dead.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to say that, some of your question of, how do we get the slides and all that? Some of the slides, yes, we have. Some of them, it's one of the things that I want someone to announce that, you can access the videos on the YouTube. All the videos and even the past school groups, symposium, workshop that we have done, they're on our YouTube platforms. So on our different WhatsApp platforms, so we'll share with you a link to our YouTube platforms. You can explore many talks there. There are so many talks on the platform. So including this one. And if you are here, you may need a refresher. So just go there, listen again, and then you can pick as much as possible from there. And then you can pick it up from there in terms of other opportunities that Prof announced yesterday that we have in the same time in order to build on the things you have started there. In case you are interested in, say, pushing forward further than just this 2 days, we can begin to think of, okay, there are other opportunities that
how do I take advantage of other opportunities like the issue of this thing scholar which we have, and then like the issue of internship for fresh graduate that we have. And who knows, you can pray for us tomorrow that we'll get bigger than I'll just put out a call that we are looking for MSc students, we are looking for PhD students, and then we put out our such call. You can just apply for it too. And you know, from time to time, we have such opportunities. I remember there is one we had recently for the KwaZulu Natal University where we had a collaboration with the University of KwaZulu Natal, and they gave admission on scholarship, so I'm free tuition and everything. But we are the ones to give the training, so they are the ones to give the certificate, and it's free. So and that's the collaboration we had with KwaZulu Natal, and then I think we are also on a good relationship with AIMS too now, where they are AIMS here, Rwanda and Cameroon, which they are building. So you don't know any of these opportunities that can bring up something. That's the more reason you can engage with that platforms like our YouTube, our LinkedIn, our which other platform, our Twitter, our Facebook, just follow. And then so that you can receive some of this information from time to time. To have it. So I think that's good. Thank you so much, everyone. So, Prof, before we go to the next session, people have been sitting down for a long time. I don't know the research that confirmed it, but I want to let that if you sit down for certain number of hours, it's equivalent to taking some packs of cigarettes. So, if you sit down for too long and you don't exercise, you are like somebody who is smoking heavily. So, we don't want to be like that. We want to burn out some here and then also refresh. So, I will bring Prof. Prof is our physiotherapy now, mathematical professor of physiotherapy. All right, let's rise up, do that. Okay, so